It's finally time for another installment of No, seriously, what the fuck is happening in Darktide? The final update for Darktide of 2025 brought us another new player class and also a little sprinkling of story on top. Just a little. We have some interesting character drama set up with the introduction of the Hive Scum, a new mini storyline that picks up where we left off with the execution of Mara Vinci, and of course, some classic Fat Shark teasers. Obey my cat! Hit the subscribe button. If you bought the Hive Scum class and made a character, you get treated to an introduction cutscene explaining how we came to get a bunch of meth-fueled drug dealers on the Morningstar, and it's pretty funny.
Ah, Explicator, you don't look happy.
I'm not. This is a dreadful idea.
Oh, have a little faith, Augustine.
This way! Any last words?
Oh, jealous little killjoy, ain't ya?
Time to die!
They're criminal scum.
They're expendable, well-armed, and incredibly dangerous. You know that better than anyone. After all, you are, sorry you were, criminal scum yourself.
Wanna play alone, do ya? You're dead meat!
I wish to petition the Conclave. Inquisitor Grendel offers an alliance. I just hope you're right about this.
Aren't I always?
Here's what I find so funny about this introduction of the Hive Scum. Mara Vinci is executed as the traitor on the ship at the end of the Battle for Tertium campaign. All of that happens before Proctor Zorin storms the Morningstar with his battalion of cop dogs to claim control of the situation. So in terms of the story, the Arvites haven't been here long. And then after they arrived, Rannick had to do a lot of social engineering of the situation to try and smooth things over, which we get to hear firsthand in Zorin's Mortis trial memories.
Atoma now falls under the jurisdiction of the Adeptus Arbites. Your rabble had their chance.
Only a fool argues with prevailing opinion.
Or with the senior arbitrator.
Quite so.
You have failed, Atoma. I will put that right. The order of the Lex Imperialis will reign once more. Your efforts are no longer needed.
There is one thing that might change your mind.
Really?
A small, unassuming thing, relatively plain, and with but a single motif. An inquisitorial seal, in fact. Grendel's seal. It places me beyond your authority, unless you happen to have something similar. Splendid! Allies it is, then.
In the end, Rannick was able to handle the situation masterfully, not only getting Zorin to stand down from trying to muscle control of the war away from the Inquisition and Grendel, but actually getting Zorin and the other officers of the warband to start building tentative friendships and mutual respect. It would seem all's well in the kingdom. Everyone is happy, and the ruthless police force with the authority to execute anyone that's under Rannick's rank with impunity have agreed to not go body cams off on everyone. And satisfied with this, Rannick then turns around and has Zola go recruit the sworn enemies of the Arvites. That is a power move that will go down in the history of all power moves. You could write an entire volume just about this one one power move alone, and it would be called the Lion, the Witch, and the Audacity of this bitch. What the actual fuck is Rannick or Grendel thinking? The Arvites player characters are overall pretty chill with our rejects, and it makes perfect sense because the Veteran, Zealot, Psyker, and Ogryn characters are not able to choose Atoma as their homeworld. This means that even though they are people that have been accused of a crime and imprisoned on an Adeptus Arbites ship, the arbitrators they serve with honestly aren't likely to have beef with them. As I've mentioned in previous videos, life in the Imperium is unfathomably awful, and the more concentrated populations you have and the higher your responsibility in interacting with said people in an official capacity is, the worse your life is. Members of the Arbites who are not brand new trainees are often deeply jaded, any spark of hope or joy in their souls extinguished by the cruelty they see common people are capable of. They're worn down to the point they no longer see the difference between the innocent just trying to live their daily lives and the true monsters stalking among them that wear human faces. Hunting down, capturing, and passing judgment on wanted criminals is just a 9 to 5. Arbites perform the requirements of their job to the letter and do not concern themselves with more or less than that requirement. So since our reject characters are not from Tertium or Atoma Prime, nothing that the characters have done or been accused of in their past falls in the jurisdiction of the Arbites give a fuck zone. But the Hive Scum? That is a completely different story. These anti-hero criminals are without a doubt on the shit list of the Adeptus Arbites of Tertium. We already know through the character creation options for the Arbites that they are so invested in trying to hamper operations of the different Hive gang syndicates of the city that they went as far as setting up a makeshift precinct fortress in the Torrent specifically to investigate and intervene on the activities of the Water Cartel. And of course, one of the gangs we can select for our Hive Scum to have been from is the Water Cartel. I just cannot get over Rannick choosing his moment to flaunt his rosette around and dare Zoran to challenge his authority, placate him into being outright nice for a ranking officer of the Arbites, and then immediately turn around and get the Hive Scum on board and in their business. Honestly, at this point in the story, offering an alliance with the Conclave seems a bit of an unnecessary action. We've ruined Admonition's ritual, Rinda still hasn't shown her face, we're actually taking the fight to the cultists at this point, and the enemy hasn't done a single thing to escalate their presence of the threat they pose to our warband or Tertium itself. Obviously, we have to have some kind of story reason to bring in any new player classes into the fold, however paper thin it may be, and that's exactly how it feels at this point in time with the Hive Scum. Paper thin. But the Hive Scum are here to stay, and playing them is the most fun I've had in Darktide in a long time, so I'll take it. On the topic of taking the fight to the heretics, along with the release of the Hive Scum class, Fat Shark gave us a new mini-series of story missions. These pick up where the Battle of Tertium left off, which as you may remember ends with the 2024 anniversary map, the Dark Communion. The Battle for Tertium campaign puts many of Darktide's missions in a chronological order and fleshes out the story of how we're meant to understand the war escalates and progresses, as well as key players and enemy characters behind the Mobian 6, as well as the mysterious cult that's beset Tertium. In terms of in-game time, this campaign is meant to be played by original reject characters, so playing it with the Adeptus Arbites, Hive Scum, and possibly the new Ogryn personality are not canon playthroughs, and you'll understand why at the end of it. Just to briefly recap how the Battle for Tertium ends, we have the 3 throne side missions, the first tasking us with storming and reclaiming a bastion from the forces of the Mobian 6 and Admonition to use as our base of operations to push into the more high-end district for the next missions. We then go to the Archivum Sycorax mission, which provides the officers of the warband, namely Interrogator Rannick, with vital intelligence that helps confirm Mara Vinci as the traitor on board the Morning Star. The throne side series ends with us sending a a communique of unknown nature regarding the war to an unknown listening station somewhere in the deep recesses of space. This mission has come from Grendel himself, and the information contained in the war report is of such a sensitive nature, not even Sergeant Major Morrow knows what it contains. However, we as players are treated to a brief glimpse of what the message seems to entail, which reports deployments of Terminator squads and recon drones into the battlefield. We're left without context of if these are friendly or enemy deployments, leaving us with a potentially dangerous prospect for the future of the war if these are meant to indicate iconic forces of Nurgle in the 40k universe. The campaign culminates in the Dark Communion, the third and possibly final mission of the series for the Carnival District map location. We hear Wolfer and an unknown woman whom he refers to as Creature arguing about tactics and Wolfer's ability to handle the insertion of our strike team with his traitor Mobian 6 soldiers. It's made clear that Wolfer and the Six are a separate entity from this mysterious woman and the forces she commands, which we learn is the Cult of Admonition. Once we arrive to the cathedral, we find that Admonition has hoisted Roden up onto a giant chaos symbol called the Octad and are seemingly using a mass amount of the green goo we know are tainted drugs they've been producing to perform some kind of ritual using his body. We hear the same woman chanting a ritual, which sounds like it's a kind of summoning for binding a demonic spirit, likely a great unclean one, into Roden Karnak's dead body. This mysterious woman is suspected to be the one woman we know for sure exists within Admonition's upper ranks, Ermal Skarkle. After we stop the ritual, your original reject character is offered a formal place in the warband, and Mara Vinci is executed for being a traitor. Thanks to the Mortis trial memories from the Bound by Duty update, we know that Commissar Dukane's arrival takes place either just before or not long after the events of the Dark Communion. Morrow and one of the Morning Star's Vox operators talk in secret about the fact that Zola has been sneaking down to Tertium more than a dozen times since the Dark Communion mission, and Morrow doesn't want Commissar Dukane to find out. But he makes no mention of Proctor Zorin or the Arvites. In the cutscene that introduces the Arvites, it begins with Grendel giving Rannick a dressing down for failing him by not getting results or purging the Cult of Admonition in a timely manner. We learn in the Dark Communion mission that Rannick was unaware of the cult's name, the extent of which they were behind the siege of Tertium, and the fact that they are likely the true masterminds of the situation, not the Mobian 6. Rannick says during the mission that Grendel will not be pleased to be informed of all of this, and indeed it would seem he is not. Because of Rannick's floundering, the Adeptus Arvites have decided to move in and try to wrestle control of their jurisdiction over the entire war, which almost assuredly puts the events of the Dark Communion and the Rejects' formal induction in the warband before the arrival of Zorin and the Arbitrators. In fact, it's actually arguable that the Arbites haven't even arrived by the time the mission Rolling Steel happens, which is the first mission in the short series of story campaign called The Road to No Man's Land.
Listen up. Cargo train RTX 590 is inbound to Barbican Gate Terminus. It's a tox gas bomb running on rails. That'd be bad enough at the best of times, but the Mobian 53rd are using the station as a deployment hub. I know Commissar Dukane ain't exactly flavour of the month, but this is our opportunity to earn her good graces. Stop that train!
The official mission story for Rolling Steel hasn't been changed or rewritten for the canon campaign order, but it has been given the campaign title End of the Line. Admonition has hijacked a train in Chasm Terminus and overwritten its machine spirit. They've loaded it with dirty bombs that when they explode will expel a large amount of stims, presumably in the form of gas, with the intended target being the Barbican Gate station where the newly arrived Mobian 53rd, the regiment that Dukane leads, have made their base of operations. They plan to smash the train into the station, killing as many members of the regiment as possible and infecting the rest, and we have 10 minutes to stop them. The canon ending of this mission is that we of course pull it off, kill the Admonition champion that shows up to try and keep us from thwarting their evil plans, stop the train, and give Commissar Dukane a reason to be quietly impressed by the incredible prowess of a non-military strike team that's able to pull pull this off. The post-mission cutscenes are back and mostly contain Dukane's ego along with a little story.
A less than auspicious start to the Tertium campaign, but the 53rd remains unbowed. Its martyrs cry out for vengeance. Too long have these heretics been permitted to thrive. Emboldened by the squabbling of nobles and the unfocused efforts of Grendel's warband, they think themselves a foe beyond reproach. They are wrong. It is the Emperor's will that the Toma be scoured of heresy. The Mobian 53rd will see it done. The Emperor protects, the Guard prevails.
We see a preview of the next mission Dukane would have us take on, which is returning to the Hourglass, where Admonition has made their home within Tertium.
For all that Interrogator Rannick wishes otherwise, Excise Vault Spireside 13 remains one of the Admonition cult's key transfer stations. Reports from the 53rd's reconnaissance spearheads indicate that a new iteration of the Blight is now awaiting dissemination. It is paramount to the war effort that you retrieve all viable samples without delay. God Emperor walk with you.
The cult have concocted a new pathogen that intelligence indicates they're looking to deploy, which makes you wonder if it's the variant that was loaded into the containers on the train in Rolling Steel. Regardless, our strike team has been selected to secure samples of this new variation, presumably at least in part because we have carried out 2 missions in this sector already and are familiar with the terrain. Instead of getting more insight into one of Admonition's presumed leaders like we did in the first 2 Hourglass missions for the Battle for Tertium campaign, we instead are treated to a new storyline with Commissar Dukane and a new character, Knight Commander Drago.
What's all this then? Doesn't look like soldiering to me.
If Sergeant Major Morrow is our stand-in dad, then Knight Commander Drago is our favorite crazy uncle. Right out of the gate, he's asking Dukane what all this namby-pamby 4-person stealth strike team insertion is all about, and insisting that an operation like this isn't going to win a war. We should be storming the sector with tanks, airships, and battalions of soldiers fighting in glorious traditional warfare.
We have discussed this, Knight Commander Drago. Denying the enemy access to their contagions will ease the road to triumph.
Dukane responds with her typical candor and tone, but the actual word she's saying carries the same exhaustion as a mother when explaining to her child for the 100th time why they will not be stopping at McDonald's on the way home from the grocery store.
Nonsense! Triumph is born of the humble guardsman's valor. And the God Emperor's favor, of course.
Indeed. And you can be sure that both will be needed before we are done.
Excellent. Death or glory, the finest tradition of the Guard.
Drago is none too pleased to hear Dukane sticking to her guns on proceeding with this mission as prescribed, but she tells the Knight Commander that if he's patient and lets her lead a sabotage on the heretic's newest virus, she'll let him have ice cream after dinner. Drago is delighted by this prospect and happily settles in to observe the rest of the mission. When the strike team interrogates the servitor colony halfway through the mission for the day's cipher ident, we get the required information to continue the mission, and newly added in something else.
Curious. We have the cipher and a series of encrypted coordinates.
Something outside the main city, unless I'm mistaken. And Maximilian Drago is never mistaken. A heretic bastion out in the Forbidden Wastes. I'd stake my reputation on it.
A small enough thing to wager in the grand scheme, but I concur.
Excellent! Do I taste the smoke of honest battle on the wind? Tight! Wake up, man! Tell Engine Seer Outback 12 that I want Lionheart roused for battle!
Before we begin the finale, Commissar Dukane actually answers something that has confused me for a while. I may have missed it in previous iterations of this mission, but I always wondered why we're loading sample containers into the central column before extracting.
Once you have the blight samples, extract them via the pneumatic conveyor.
So we're putting these gigantic metal containers into a mega tube that will suck them to somewhere, I assume a trusted member of the warband will receive them for examination. That's fun, and now I want to climb in there. This is the perfect reason to add a Ratling character, because they'd be small enough to fit in there and see where these tubes go. We get the job done, and Dukane once again is seemingly unimpressed by our valor. However, she makes it clear that we won't actually be idle long. Commander Drago has already begun planning an operation to find and siege the coordinates contained in the data we obtained halfway through this Excise Vault mission. It turns out that Admonition has a stronghold outside of Tertium proper, in a place known as Consora's Folly.
Our foray into Admonition's territory has yielded unexpected results. Not only have we stripped them of a virulent new strain of contagion, we have also located one of their staging areas. Located in the ruins of Consora's Folly, this fortification is a ripe target. Destroy it, and we will strike a weighty blow against our enemies, greater than any that Interrogator Rannick's leadership has conjured thus far. It would seem that Knight Commander Drago will get his honest battle. Let us hope that it yields resounding victory alongside. The Emperor protects, the Guard prevails.
This post-mission debrief makes it clear that Consora's Folly is originally meant to be taken back control by our warband, and the bastion that Admonition has set up outright destroyed. Which brings us to the new operation of this update, No Man's Land, aka Hammer of the Emperor.
The Admonition cult have seized a bastion out on the edge of the Forbidden Wastes, and are using it as a base from which to spread deeper into the Hive. The Bastion's capture is to be your responsibility. The Mobian 53rd will offer support by launching a diversionary attack at Site Zenith. The fortifications may prove challenging, so Knight Commander Drago has volunteered to provide additional firepower, should it be warranted.
Aha! There you are! Sergeant Tights was starting to think you'd never get here. But don't mind him, he's a born pessimist.
Instead of destroying the bastion, by the time we finally get our boots on the ground, the mission objective has changed to just capturing it. Knight Commander Drago is back, this time in his Leman Russ tank named the Lionheart, and we kind of escort each other through an active battlefield outside of the city of Tertium for the first time. It's presumably been at least a matter of days, possibly weeks, since the end of the Excise Vault mission in the Hourglass. The trenches we run through may have already existed, since we see the ruins of what's called Consora's Folly, and evidence that some kind of battle or bombardment having taken place a long time ago on this map is evident. However, these also may have been freshly dug trenches by the Mobian 53rd. We do know they've at least had a presence established on this battlefield, because they've had enough time to push in, take over the zone, hang banners, and then have the heretics push them out and deface them with dark tongue graffiti. Exactly how long this has been going on for, the seeming trading of control back and forth of this area since it was discovered Admonition had a stronghold here, is unclear, as is the case with pretty much everything in Darktide, and the question of how long it's been going on. These environmental storytelling pieces are still here to help us understand what has been going on since we left the Hourglass. Drago is back, and he and Sergeant Tice are driving the Lionheart with us up to the entrance of the bastion for heavy fire support. We need to make it to Admonition's bastion as fast as possible, because elsewhere in another engagement zone, a battalion of Commissar Dukane's 53rd soldiers have stormed into the area to pull heretic attention and fire to them and away from the Lionheart to get through Consora's Folly unscathed. If we fail in our mission or take too long, her entire team could die. But don't worry, the No Man's Land mission itself does not have a timer like Rolling Steel did. There really isn't a ton of lore or story going on throughout this mission. There are some bits and pieces. Drago reinforces my theory that Dukane and the Mobian 53rd represent influence of the chaos god Slanesh, who is also the god obsessed with perfection.
Not bad, not bad. I was hoping for total obliteration, but perfection's an elusive plan.
We get a little more insight into the history of Riga Consora, the namesake of Consora's Folly.
One day,
oh Lord,
will be rebuilt and Riga Consora acclaimed with honor.
I have studied her Galatine Rift campaigns. They were impressive.
Impressive enough that her peers betrayed and murdered her out of jealousy.
Politics are distasteful. I prefer to fight my battles eye to eye.
Riga Consora was a ruthless tactician and militant general in the Mobian domain's history. In fact, she was so successful and effective that she caught a knife in the back from those she served with, including possibly celebrated hero Enoch Barros. How both Consora and Barros are remembered seems to differ depending on where you learn your history about them. This insight actually brings up something interesting about the name of the area itself, Consora's Folly. It could be folly in the sense that Riga made some kind of blind mistake in tactics, possibly even here in Tertium's ancient past. The buildings in this area have long since been destroyed, and we know this fringe of the Hive City is called the Forbidden Wastes, which are also considered to be highly radioactive. Perhaps there was some kind of cataclysm that befell Tertium, and Consora is blamed by some for its responsibility. However, Consora's Folly could also take on another meaning. A folly is a large, ornate building that has no actual purpose other than its ornamentation. This normally wouldn't be exactly considered a compliment, but in the 40k universe, that describes like 90% of the buildings you see. So yeah, maybe Consora's Folly is just referring to the building. Maybe it's a hint about historical figures of Tertium's past and the friction between them. Maybe it's both. Anyway, that's the majority of interesting story pieces I took away from the dialogue of the mission. Other than that, there's a bit more environmental storytelling. Once you reach the heavily shelled fields, you'll find burning wreckage of what looks to be tanks at first glance. In Warhammer 40,000, these aren't actually tanks, however. They're called chimeras, and their main function is for transporting units of infantrymen into an engagement zone and then releasing them onto the battlefield directly where they're needed. All these chimeras are pointed toward the bastion we're trying to retake, so it would seem this same stronghold was their ultimate point of engagement. What's really interesting is that these are not chimeras used by the Mobian 53rd or any loyalist forces that might represent our warband. These transporters all bear the number 6. These chimeras are vehicles used by the traitor Mobian 6, which gives us more insight into what they still have at their disposal when it comes to military strength. Given that we see Mobian 53rd banners on the outside and inside of the actual bastion itself, it seems likely that these no-man land fields are remnants of the back and forth trading of control over this strategic outpost since we discovered its existence in the Hourglass mission. It's obvious the heretics have been here for a while. Fatigues, lasguns, helmets, supplies to keep soldiers outfitted are stored in lockers throughout the bastion. Large barrels with contents that are supposedly amasec are found toward the back of the fort. Amasec is an alcoholic beverage in 40k, quite a common one. Interestingly, we might know where these barrels have come from. Remember the carnival missions? Every time we've gone on a mission in the carnival and traveled through enemy-controlled territory, one of the buildings we move through is a brewery. This is the same building that we find the ritual circle Rinda Karnak was at when she confronted and revealed to Wolfer that she is still alive. So Admonition has definitely set up shop in this brewery for at least some amount of time, and they have also been producing mass quantities of stim goop in the Carnival District as well. Since this Admonition green goo TM seems to be integral to their activities, I am highly suspicious that the contents of these large barrels at the Consora's Folly Bastion don't actually contain Amasec. But the real star of the show here is, of course, the basement. Once we've cleared the area in the bastion of enemies, we are tasked with going downstairs and entering a previously shut door to find anything with intelligence detailing where more of the heretic bases outside of the Hive City may be in the Wastes of Atoma. And we've got some heavy hitters for information. First of all, yes, a Gene Stealer cult symbol is found on some of the papers. It's unclear if this indicates the heretics and a Gene Stealer cult are somehow working together, or if perhaps they are an entity Admonition is aware of, and they have been engaged in some skirmishes already. The datapad we find are all concerning a specific person, Ermal Skarkle, a presumed higher-up within the cult of Admonition. We know she's the one who performed Rinda's life-saving surgery, and she's the one presumably who is behind the phage tree, and I highly suspect she's the owner of the mysterious voice we hear fight with Wolfer throughout the Dark Communion mission. A dark hooded figure with eyes that pierce from the shadows is what we see of her. There's not much going on, but it may be indicating that our first major target within Admonition is going to be her. And then there's the matter of the information provided by the warband traitor. You see, a lot of these documents that we find in this basement, you can actually look at them and make out a stamp that seems to be the Inquisition sigil. There's a book with the all-seeing eye on the cover on a table next to a journal with the double-headed eagle of the Imperium on the front. There's blueprints that appear to detail the schematic of the train that Admonition hijacks in the Rolling Steel mission. The implication of this is, I would guess, that at least some, if not a majority, of Admonition's information and intelligence came from the inside and was given to them by a spy. Perhaps this was all material that was provided by Mara Vinci. Maybe Admonition and the Mobian Sixth have received nothing further since her execution, and if she didn't act alone, other traitors have been too afraid of discovery to contact the heretics again. Or maybe we should be concerned that the problem of the traitor from within is far from over. Thanks so much for watching and for all of your support. Special shout out to my top supporters, Leah S., Andrew Brown, Cabus, Rich, William McQueen, Ben, Darkslide, Cameron, Commander Orf, Ginge Dread, Yellow 13, Ripped Limbo, El Zunix, Sam Walcroft, Sam Spry, Macaroni Tuesday, The Speedy Turtle 4, Vegas Moxie, Din Fairy, Freakazoid, Sem D85, Lord Pingu, Am I Here or There? Mr. Schrodinger, Jason Clark, Gamer Master 234, CTQZ1MF, Evan Berger, Harbinger, Bad Cat, Dark Slide, Kron Chaos, The Fargos, The Thunder Guardian, Aubrey Bessie, The Real Kazan, and Macrove.